Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the atmospheric readings on his tablet. The numbers looked good. After 3 months of hard work, the air on Kepler 442b was finally becoming breathable for humans. The red dust storms that had plagued their terraforming efforts were getting weaker each week. "Jake, you need to see this," called Lisa Chen from across the rocky plateau. The medic was pointing her scanner at something in the distance. Her voice carried worry. Jake jogged over to where Lisa stood with Tom Bradley, their pilot. Tom was using binoculars to look at a dark shape about half a mile away. The shape was too regular to be natural. It looked like twisted metal. "Crashed ship," Tom said, handing Jake the binoculars. "Been there a while by the look of it. The metal's all scorched." Jake studied the wreckage through the lenses. The ship was unlike anything he had seen before. It was made of a strange blue-silver, metal that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light of Kepler's distant sun. Parts of it were buried in the red soil, but he could see that it had been beautiful once. Now it was broken and bent. "Any life signs?" Jake asked Lisa. Lisa held up her medical scanner and frowned. "Hard to tell from here. The ship's hull is blocking most readings, but I'm getting something. Very weak, but something." Jake made a decision that would change everything, though he did not know it then. "We check it out. If someone's alive in there, they need help." The 3 humans walked across the barren landscape toward the crashed ship. Their boots crunched on the rocky ground. The air was thin but breathable now, thanks to their terraforming work. As they got closer, Jake could see that the ship was even stranger than he had thought. The metal seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. Strange symbols were carved into the hull, symbols that hurt to look at directly. The ship was big, maybe the size of a small house, but it was clearly not built by human hands. "Doors here," Tom called out. He had found an opening in the side of the ship. The edges were melted, probably from the crash. "Looks like we can squeeze through." Jake went first, crawling through the narrow gap. The inside of the ship was dark and filled with a sweet smell like flowers. His flashlight beam revealed walls that curved in impossible ways. Everything was smooth and organic looking, more like the inside of a giant shell than a machine. "Over here," Lisa's voice echoed from deeper in the ship. She had found the crew quarters. Jake followed her voice through a twisted corridor. When he found Lisa, she was kneeling beside 3 alien beings. Jake had seen pictures of other species in the galactic databases, but these were different from anything in human records. The aliens were tall and thin, with skin that looked like living crystal. Their faces were beautiful in a strange way, with large eyes that shifted color like oil on water. 2 of them were clearly dead, their crystal skin cracked and dark. But the third one was still breathing, barely. "She's alive," Lisa said, running her scanner over the alien. "But not for long. Her body chemistry is all wrong for this atmosphere. She's suffocating slowly." The alien's eyes opened as Lisa spoke. They focused on Jake's face with obvious effort. The creature's mouth moved, making sounds like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Jake did not understand the words, but the meaning was clear. She was asking for help. "What do we need to do?" Jake asked. Lisa checked her readings again. "Her species needs a different gas mixture, more nitrogen, less oxygen, and her body temperature is dropping fast. She needs medical attention now or she'll be dead in an hour." Tom looked around the ship's interior. "Maybe we can fix their life support. Get the ship running again." "No, time," Lisa said. "And look at this place. The crash damaged everything. We need to get her back to our base." Jake knew what that meant. Their small terraforming base had limited medical supplies. They were not equipped to treat alien physiology. Helping this creature would use up resources they needed for their own mission. It might even put their own lives at risk. But Jake Morrison was the kind of man who could not walk away from someone who needed help. It did not matter that she was alien. It did not matter that helping her was dangerous. She was dying and he had the power to try to save her. "We take her back," he said. "Tom, can the rover handle the extra weight?" "Should be fine," Tom replied. But Jake, are you sure about this? We don't know anything about her species. What if she's dangerous? Jake looked down at the dying alien. Her crystal skin was becoming more transparent as her life faded. Her breathing was getting weaker. There was nothing dangerous about her now except maybe to herself. Look at her, Jake said quietly. She's scared and dying, just like any human would be. Lisa was already preparing an emergency medical kit. I can rig up a temporary atmosphere tank, mix the gases she needs. It won't last long, but it might keep her alive long enough to get her stable. They worked quickly and carefully to move the alien to their rover. Lisa had wrapped her in heating blankets and connected her to a makeshift breathing apparatus. The alien drifted in and out of consciousness during the bumpy ride back to their base. At the base, Lisa turned their small medical bay into an alien life support system. She worked for hours, using every piece of medical equipment they had. Jake helped by monitoring readings and adjusting atmospheric controls. Tom kept their communications equipment running, trying to contact any ships in the area that might help. The alien woke up near midnight. Her color-shifting eyes found Jake in the dim light of the medical bay. She tried to sit up, but Lisa gently pushed her back down. Easy there, Lisa said softly. You're safe now. Just rest. The alien looked confused for a moment. Then she seemed to understand that these strange creatures had saved her life. She reached out with one crystal hand and touched Jake's arm. Her touch was warm despite her crystalline appearance. She spoke again in her wind chime language. This time her voice was stronger. Jake still could not understand the words, but her tone was unmistakable. She was saying thank you. You're welcome, Jake said, though he knew she probably could not understand him either. The alien smiled and her face lit up with inner light. She closed her eyes and fell into what looked like peaceful sleep. Her breathing was steady now. The color was returning to her crystal skin. Will she make it? Jake asked Lisa. I think so, Lisa replied. Her vital signs are stabilizing. I've never seen anything like her biology, but she's tougher than she looks. Jake nodded and settled into a chair beside the alien's bed. He would stay with her through the night just in case she needed anything. It seemed like the right thing to do. He had no idea that this simple act of kindness would soon echo across the entire galaxy. He did not know that the alien woman would remember this moment for the rest of her long life. He did not know that. Her people valued gratitude above all other virtues. Jake Morrison was just a human being who could not stand to watch someone die when he had the power to help. In the morning, everything would begin to change. 3 months had passed since the rescue. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of their terraforming station, watching the sunrise paint the red mountains of Kepler 442b in shades of gold. The planet looked different now. Green patches dotted the landscape where their atmospheric processors had been working. Life was taking hold. Morning coffee, Lisa Chen said, joining him with 2 steaming cups. She looked tired but happy. Their work was going better than anyone had expected. Thanks, Jake said, taking the warm cup. Any word from our alien friends? Lisa smiled. Dex sent another message yesterday. He and Nova made it to Sanctuary Station safely. They're doing well in the refugee camps there. Jake nodded. After the rescue, it had taken 2 weeks for a passing trade ship to pick up their recovered alien. During that time, they had learned that her name was Kira, and she was some kind of leader among her people, the Villani. The 2 survivors with her were called Dex and Nova. Kira had died peacefully in their medical bay, but not before she had done something strange. On her last day, Kira had asked Jake to kneel beside her bed. She had placed her crystal hands on his forehead and spoken words in her musical language. Lisa's translation device had caught fragments. Something about bonds and gratitude and remembering. Then Kira had done the same thing to Lisa and Tom. I still don't understand what that ceremony meant, Jake said. Maybe it was just their way of saying goodbye, Lisa replied. Some kind of blessing. They had gone back to their terraforming work after that. The rescue had cost them 2 weeks of progress and most of their medical supplies, but Jake did not regret it. Saving lives was more important than staying on schedule. Tom, Bradley's voice crackled over the communication system. Jake, Lisa, you better get to the comm center. We're getting some interesting calls. They found Tom staring at his communication board with a confused expression. 3 different alien frequencies were blinking for attention. That was unusual. Most alien species ignored human terraforming operations. What have we got? Jake asked. First, call is from something called the Altair Trading Consortium, Tom said. They want to establish regular trade routes through this system. They're offering to buy our agricultural output at premium prices. Lisa raised an eyebrow. We don't have any agricultural output yet. We've barely got grass growing. That's what I told them, Tom replied. But they said they heard humans were reliable partners and they want to get in early. The second call is even stranger. Tom switched to another frequency. A new alien voice filled the comm center, speaking in accented but clear English. This is Captain Yara of the Helix Research Foundation. We have heard of human ingenuity in terraforming. We would like to share our atmospheric processing data with your team. No payment required. Consider it a gift between friends. Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. The Helix Foundation was famous across the galaxy for guarding their scientific secrets. They had never shared data with humans before. And the third call? Jake asked. Tom grinned. This one's my favorite. It's from the Galactic Racing League. They want to invite human pilots to compete in their championship races. Apparently they heard we produce excellent pilots who never give up. That's ridiculous, Lisa said. They don't even know Tom exists. Actually, Tom said, looking pleased, they specifically asked for the pilot from the Kepler 442b team. Someone told them about our landing techniques. Jake was starting to feel confused. 3 months ago, nobody in the galaxy cared about their little terraforming project. Now suddenly, everyone wanted to be their friend. Meanwhile, 1500 light years away, Captain Rachel Torres was having an even more confusing day. Her exploration ship, the Endeavor, had just received its 14th offer of assistance in the past week. Captain, said her communications officer, Lieutenant Mark Davis, we've got another one. The Centauri Mining Guild wants to give us free fuel and supplies for our exploration mission. Rachel looked up from her star charts. Did they say why? Same reason as all the others, Mark replied. They heard humans were good people to work with. Rachel had been exploring the Outer Rim for 5 years. In all that time, alien species had been polite but distant. They traded when necessary but kept to themselves. This sudden friendliness was completely unexpected. Run a background check on all these offers, she told Mark. I want to know what changed. The answer came 2 days later. Mark had traced the source of all the goodwill back to a single point in the communication network. It started at Sanctuary Station, he reported. 3 months ago, 2 Villani refugees arrived there and started telling everyone about a human rescue team that saved their lives. Rachel knew about the Villani. Everyone did. They were refugees from a destroyed world, scattered across the galaxy in small groups. What she had not known was how much other species respected them. The Villani are mediators, Mark explained, reading from his research. They've been helping settle disputes between different species for over 200 years. When they say something, people listen. Back on Earth, Admiral Robert Hayes was discovering the same thing. The monthly Galactic Council meeting had been unlike any other in his experience. Instead of the usual cold politeness, he had been greeted with warm welcomes and offers of cooperation. The humans saved Elder Kira, explained Ambassador Finn of the Rigel Republic. Any friend of the Villani is a friend of ours. We heard your people risk their own lives to help strangers, added Counselor Vex from the Spiral Arm Alliance. This shows great honor. We would be pleased to expand our trade agreements. Admiral Hayes had left the meeting with 3 new trade deals, 2 offers of scientific cooperation, and an invitation to establish human embassies on 12 different worlds, all because of something that happened on a distant terraforming planet. That evening, he sent a priority message to Jake Morrison. Jake received the message while he was calibrating atmospheric processors. The Admiral's face appeared on his tablet screen, looking both pleased and bewildered. Mr. Morrison, the Admiral said, I need to know exactly what happened during your alien rescue 3 months ago. It seems your actions have had some unexpected consequences. Jake listened in amazement as Admiral Hayes described the changes happening across human space. Trade routes opening, scientific exchanges beginning, diplomatic doors that had been closed for decades suddenly swinging wide. All because we helped some refugees, Jake said to Lisa after the message ended. Apparently the Villani have a lot more influence than we realized, Lisa replied. Dex mentioned in his last message that Kira was some kind of elder or leader. Maybe she was more important than we knew. That night Jake stood again on the observation deck looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, in refugee camps and trading stations and diplomatic councils, people were talking about humanity. Not because of their technology or their military strength, but because 3 humans had chosen to help strangers in need. The rescue had cost them supplies and time and effort, but it was earning them something far more valuable. It was earning them friends. Jake did not know it yet, but those friends would soon prove to be exactly what humanity needed. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and the reputation for kindness they were building would be tested in ways none of them could imagine. For now, though, he was content to watch the stars and know that somewhere among them grateful voices were speaking well of his species. It felt good to be known for doing the right thing. Dr. Emily Watson stared at the massive holographic display in her research lab on Luna Station. Lines of light connected thousands of points across the galaxy, showing communication patterns between different alien species. What she was seeing made no sense. "Computer, show me human-alien communications for the past 6 months," she said. The display changed, highlighting interactions involving human colonies and ships. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Every single positive contact with humanity traced back to the same source. "Sanctuary Station," Emily whispered. "It all starts there." Emily was a xenobiologist who specialized in studying how different species communicated across the galaxy. Her job was to understand the hidden networks that connected civilizations. What she had discovered would change everything humans thought they knew about galactic politics. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Hayes on Earth. When his face appeared on her screen, she could see the stress lines around his eyes. The sudden changes in human relations had everyone in government working overtime. "Admiral, I need to brief you immediately," Emily said. "I've found something about our reputation that you need to know." "Can it wait until morning?" Hayes asked. "I've got meetings with 7 different alien ambassadors tomorrow." "That's exactly why this can't wait," Emily replied. "Those ambassadors aren't meeting with you by accident. There's a network, Admiral. A network that decides who gets trusted in this galaxy, and somehow we just got accepted into it." An hour later, Emily was in the secure briefing room at Earth. Command explaining her discovery to Admiral Hayes and his senior staff. "The Villani aren't just refugees," she began, pointing to her data displays. "They're the galaxy's most trusted mediators. For over 3 centuries, they've been settling disputes between hostile species. When 2 civilizations can't agree on something, they call in a Villani elder to judge the situation." Colonel Frank Rivera, head of intelligence, leaned forward. "How many species trust their judgment?" "All of them," Emily replied. "Every major civilization in this galaxy. The Altair Traders, the Helix Foundation, the Rigel Republic, even the isolationist Spiral Confederacy. When a Villani says someone can be trusted, nobody questions it." Admiral Hayes felt his stomach drop. And Kira was one of these elders. "Not just any elder," Emily continued. "According to the data I've gathered, Elder Kira was the most respected mediator of her generation. She settled the Rigel Centauri War. She negotiated the Great Trade Accords. She was basically the galaxy's supreme judge for matters of honor and trust." The room fell silent as everyone understood what that meant. "So when she marked Jake Morrison and his team as trustworthy," Hayes said slowly, "it was like getting a character reference from the most respected person in the galaxy." "Exactly. And because humans saved her life, she performed something called the bonding ritual. It's the highest honor the Villani can give. It means they consider humanity to be worthy of absolute trust." Meanwhile, on Kepler 442b, Jake Morrison was about to learn just how much his life was about to change. He was adjusting the atmospheric processors when his communicator chimed with an incoming priority message. "Jake," Tom called from the communication center, "you're going to want to hear this." Jake walked over to find Tom staring at a message with wide eyes. "It's an invitation," Tom said, "from something called the Galactic Harmony Council. They want to meet you." "Never heard of them," Jake replied. "What do they want?" "They want to thank you personally for saving Elder Kira," Tom read from the screen. "They're sending a ship to pick you up. They want you to come to Harmony Point." Lisa looked up from her medical equipment. Harmony Point. That's the neutral station at the galactic core. Nobody goes there unless they're really important. Jake felt confused. "I'm not important? I'm just an engineer." "Maybe not to us," Lisa said, "but apparently you're very important to them." 3 days later, Jake found himself aboard an alien ship unlike anything he had ever seen. The Villani transport vessel was beautiful, with walls that seemed to be made of living crystal. His escort, a young Villani named Nova, explained things as they traveled. "Elder Kira spoke of you in her final transmission," Nova said, her voice like soft music. "She said you and your people saved her life without asking for anything in return. In our culture, this makes you bonded family." "I still don't understand what that means," Jake admitted. Nova's crystal skin shifted colors as she smiled. "It means that when the Villani speak, we speak for humanity as well. Every friend of ours becomes your friend. Every alliance we have includes you now." The ship dropped out of hyperspace near Harmony Point, and Jake gasped. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Ships from dozens of different species were docked at its many ports. This was the diplomatic heart of the galaxy. Inside the station, Jake was overwhelmed by the diversity of life forms he encountered. Beings made of energy walked beside creatures that looked like living trees. Aliens with multiple heads chatted with species that appeared to be sentient gas clouds. Nova led him through corridors filled with beings from across the galaxy. Many of them stopped to look at Jake with obvious curiosity. Some even bowed as he passed. "Why are they doing that?" Jake whispered. "You are the first savior," Nova explained. "The first human to be marked by the bonding ritual. You represent your entire species now." They arrived at a vast chamber where dozens of alien representatives were waiting. At the center stood Dex, the other Villani survivor from the crash. His crystal skin glowed brighter when he saw Jake. "Jake Morrison," Dex announced to the assembled crowd. "Savior of Elder Kira, bonded friend of the Villani people." The chamber erupted in sounds that Jake assumed were applause, though it came in forms he had never heard before. Musical tones, clicking noises, and harmonious humming filled the air. One by one, representatives from different species approached Jake. Each one offered their friendship to humanity. The Altair traders promised preferred trade status. The Helix Foundation offered to share their scientific knowledge. The Rigel Republic extended invitations to establish human colonies in their territory. Jake was stunned. All of this because he had helped 3 strangers who needed medical attention. Ambassador Yun of the Spiral Confederacy was the last to approach. His species had never spoken to humans before. "We have watched your people for many years," Yun said in perfect English. "We thought you were like all the others, selfish, aggressive, concerned only with your own survival." Jake waited, not sure what to say. "But the Villani have shown us the truth," Yun continued. "Humans risk their own lives to save strangers. This is the mark of a truly advanced species. The Spiral Confederacy would be honored to call humanity our allies." As Jake stood in that chamber, surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy, he finally understood what had happened. His simple act of kindness had unlocked a network of relationships that spanned civilizations. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. But with great friendship came great responsibility. Jake could see it in the eyes of every being present. They trusted humans now because they trusted him. They expected humanity to live up to the reputation he had created. The question was, would they be able to do it when the real test came? General Marcus Voss of the Dominion Empire watched the holographic reports with growing anger. The display showed trade routes that had been closed to his forces for months. Diplomatic channels that once favored the Dominion were now supporting their enemies. All because of one insignificant species that had appeared out of nowhere. Humans, he spat, crushing the datapad in his metal fist. How did these primitives gain so much influence so quickly? His intelligence officer, Colonel Kane, stepped forward nervously. Sir, our sources indicate it began with a rescue operation. The humans saved some Volani refugees and gained their trust. The Volani, Voss snarled. Those crystal-skinned peacekeepers have been interfering with Dominion expansion for centuries. Now they have new pets to do their bidding. Voss turned to face his war council. The Dominion believed in one simple rule. The strong survived and the weak served. This new alliance of species working together threatened everything they stood for. Prepare the fleet, he ordered. If the galaxy wants to follow human leadership, then we will show them what happens to humans in a real fight. 3 weeks later, Captain David Miller of the human cruiser Defiance received an emergency distress call. The message came from New Geneva, a vital trade hub near the border of human space. Captain, his communications officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, reported, New Geneva is under attack. Dominion forces, sir. They're demanding surrender. David felt his jaw tighten. New Geneva was home to over 2 million beings from a dozen different species. It was one of the galaxy's most important trading centers. How many ships? He asked. Unknown, sir. The transmission cut off mid-sentence. David made a quick decision. Signal the fleet. All available ships to New Geneva immediately, sir. His tactical officer, Lieutenant James Park, warned. We only have 6 ships in this sector. If it's a full Dominion assault, we'll be heavily outnumbered. Then we'd better hope our new friends meant what they said about standing together, David replied. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace near New Geneva to find a nightmare scenario. 50 Dominion warships surrounded the station, their weapons charging for what looked like a final assault. The station's shields were failing, and small fires could be seen through the viewports. 6 ships against 50, Park muttered. This is going to be ugly. David opened a channel to the Dominion fleet. General Voss's scarred face appeared on the screen, grinning with cruel satisfaction. Captain Miller, Voss said mockingly. Come to save your precious allies. How noble. How stupid. Release the station, Voss, David demanded. Those are innocent civilians. Innocent. Voss laughed. They chose to trade with humans instead of bowing to Dominion authority. That makes them enemies. You're making a mistake, David warned. Attack that station and you'll answer to more than just humanity. Really? Voss's grin widened. I see 6 human ships. Where are all these powerful allies you've been bragging about? David felt doubt creeping into his mind. Maybe the promises of friendship had been just polite words. Maybe when it came to real fighting, humanity would stand alone after all. Then his sensor operator gasped. Captain, I'm reading hyperspace signatures. Lots of them. The space around New Geneva suddenly filled with ships. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. Vessels from species David had never seen before were dropping out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The graceful curves of Altair battlecruisers appeared alongside the geometric designs of Helix research vessels converted for combat. Rigel Republic destroyers formed up next to Spiral Confederacy fighters. Even the mysterious Shadow Fleet, which few beings had ever seen, materialized from nowhere to join the gathering armada. Voss's grin disappeared. What is this? He demanded. Captain Yara of the Helix Foundation answered him over an open channel. This is what happens when you threaten our friends, General. The Volani have spoken for humanity. That makes any attack on humans an attack on all of us. David watched in amazement as more ships continued to arrive. Species that had been enemies for generations were flying together in defense of a human station. The Dominion fleet, which had seemed overwhelming minutes before, was now outnumbered 3-1. Impossible, Voss snarled. These species hate each other. They've been fighting wars for centuries. Ambassador Finn of the Rigel Republic joined the communication channel. We put aside our differences because humans showed us what real honor looks like. They saved lives without asking for payment. They treated strangers like family. This is your last chance, Voss, Captain Yara added. Withdraw your forces, or face the combined might of the new Galactic Alliance. General Voss stared at the display, showing hundreds of alien ships in perfect formation. His tactical computer was flashing warnings about impossible odds. But the Dominion had never backed down from a fight. All ships attack pattern Delta, he ordered. Show them what Dominion strength really means. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dominion forces fought with their usual brutal efficiency, but they were facing something entirely new. The Allied fleet didn't just fight as separate groups, they fought as one unified force. Altair energy weapons covered Rigel missile attacks. Helix gravity manipulators protected human ships while they delivered devastating railgun salvos. The Shadow Fleet used their stealth technology to appear behind Dominion lines at exactly the right moments. David found his ship fighting alongside a Spiral Confederacy destroyer. Their combined firepower overwhelmed 3 Dominion cruisers in minutes. This is incredible, Lieutenant Park said, watching the tactical display. They're sharing weapons data in real time. These species are combining their technologies on the fly. The tide of battle turned quickly. Dominion ships, used to fighting enemies who couldn't coordinate effectively, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their superior firepower meant nothing when they couldn't hit targets that were being protected by 6 different types of defensive systems. General Voss watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. Sir, Colonel Kane reported, we've lost 30% of our ships. The aliens are using tactics we've never seen. They're not just tactics, Voss realized with growing horror. They trust each other completely. They're fighting like a single organism. One by one, Dominion ships began to retreat. Voss held out until the end, but even his flagship couldn't stand against the coordinated assault of the Allied fleet. As his ship limped away from the battlefield, Voss sent one final transmission to the human fleet. This isn't over, Miller. The Dominion will remember this day. David watched the last Dominion ship disappear into hyperspace, then turned to address the Allied fleet. To all ships, thank you. You've shown the galaxy what friendship really means. Captain Yara's voice came back warm with satisfaction. Thank you, Captain Miller. Your people saved our mediator. Today we returned the favor. As the Allied fleet began to disperse, David realized that something fundamental had changed in the galaxy. Humanity had allies now, real allies who would risk their lives for human civilians. But more than that, former enemies were working together because they all trusted human judgment. The rescue of 3 Villani refugees had created something unprecedented. A galaxy united not by conquest, but by friendship. But David also knew that General Voss had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. The Dominion would be back, and next time they would be ready for unified resistance. The real test was still coming. Admiral Susan Clark stood in the main conference room of the new Unity station, looking out at the most diverse gathering of beings in galactic history. Representatives from 47 different species sat around the circular table, all working together to forge the first truly unified galactic alliance. The Dominion is recruiting, reported Intelligence Chief Frank Rivera, displaying holographic data for the assembled group. General Voss has been visiting the Outer Rim worlds, promising them easy conquests if they join his counter-alliance. Ambassador Finn of the Rigel Republic leaned forward. How many species have joined him? 12 so far, Frank replied grimly. The Carnage Legion, the Bloodstar Pirates, the Void Hunters, all species that prefer taking what they want by force. Captain Yara of the Helix Foundation shook her head. This is exactly what we feared. Our unity threatens those who profit from chaos and conflict. Susan looked around the table at faces both alien and familiar. 3 months ago, most of these beings had never spoken to each other. Now they were planning joint military operations and sharing their most advanced technologies. The question is, she said, what's Voss's ultimate target? Her answer came sooner than expected. Lieutenant Colonel Mike Anderson burst into the conference room with an urgent message. "Admiral, we've intercepted Dominion communications," he reported, breathing hard from running. "They're planning an assault on Earth itself." The room fell silent. Then everyone started talking at once, in a dozen different languages and communication methods. Susan raised her hand for quiet. "Details, Mike. Voss believes that if he can destroy human leadership, our alliance will fall apart," Mike explained. "He's gathering every ship he can find for a massive assault on the Sol system. Intelligence estimates over 300 vessels." Ambassador Yun of the Spiral Confederacy made a sound like grinding stone. "Voss is clever. He knows humans are the emotional center of our alliance. If Earth falls, many species might lose faith in cooperation." "Then we don't let Earth fall," Susan said firmly. "How long do we have?" 2 weeks, maybe 3, Frank replied. "Depends on how quickly he can gather his forces." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Messages flew across the galaxy as the allied species began mobilizing their fleets. But Susan knew they faced a terrible problem. The Dominion's new alliance included some of the most aggressive species in the galaxy. They would fight with a brutality the peaceful alliance wasn't prepared for. Meanwhile, on Kepler 442b, Jake Morrison received the most important communication of his life. "Jake," Admiral Clark's voice came through the secure channel. "We need you on Earth. The Volani survivors want to coordinate our defense, and they'll only work with you." Jake looked around at the now green landscape of Kepler 442b. His terraforming work was nearly complete. The planet that had once been barren rock was becoming a garden world. It felt wrong to leave now. "Admiral, I'm just an engineer," he protested. "I don't know anything about military strategy." "You know about bringing people together," Susan replied. "Right now, that's more important than strategy." 3 days later, Jake found himself in Earth's orbital defense center, surrounded by beings he was still learning to identify. Dex and Nova, the Volani survivors he had saved, greeted him like a long-lost brother. "Jake," Dex said, his crystal skin glowing with warmth. "We have much to discuss." The bonding ritual Elder Kira performed was more than a simple blessing. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. Nova answered, her musical voice carrying hints of sadness. "She bound your life force to ours and ours to yours. In our culture, this creates a connection that transcends death. Your safety is our safety. Your people's survival is our survival." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying that if humanity is destroyed, the Volani will die too?" "Not die," Dex explained. "But we will lose the ability to mediate between species. Our gift for building trust comes from our connections to bonded allies. Without humanity, we become just another refugee species." The implications hit Jake like a hammer blow. "That's why everyone is willing to fight for us. If we fall, the galactic peace falls with us." "Exactly," Nova confirmed. "Voss knows this. He believes that destroying humanity will shatter the alliance and return the galaxy to the old ways of conquest and domination." Admiral Clark joined their conversation, her face grim with worry. "Our combined fleet numbers over 400 ships, but Voss has advantages we don't. His allies are used to working together through fear and brutality. Our people are still learning to trust each other." Jake thought about the rescue that had started everything. 3 dying aliens in a crashed ship, and his decision to help them, despite the cost. Now that decision had led to a war that would determine the future of galactic civilization. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. "Help us stay united," Susan replied. "When the battle starts, some species might panic and retreat. Others might fight too aggressively and break formation. We need someone who can remind them why they're fighting." "You are the symbol of what we're trying to build," Dex added. "A galaxy where beings help each other simply because it's right. Your presence gives others courage." Jake nodded, though he felt the weight of impossible responsibility settling on his shoulders. The fate of entire civilizations now depended on choices made by people trying to live up to his example. The next week passed in frantic preparation. Human shipyards worked around the clock to upgrade Allied vessels with new weapon systems. Alien engineers shared technologies that had been secret for centuries. The Helix Foundation revealed gravity weapons they had never used before. The Rigel Republic offered their newest shield generators. But the most remarkable change was in the beings themselves. Jake watched former enemies working side by side, sharing not just technology but trust. Spiral Confederacy tacticians planned strategies with Altair commanders. Helix scientists collaborated with human engineers to create hybrid defense systems. Lieutenant Jennifer Lee, Jake's former linguist colleague, had been assigned to coordinate communications between species. She found him in the observation deck staring out at the massive fleet gathering around Earth. "Incredible, isn't it?" she said, joining him at the window. 6 months ago, none of these species would even talk to each other. Now they're willing to die for each other. Jake replied quietly. "All because we helped some strangers who needed medical attention." "Do you regret it?" Jennifer asked. "All this pressure, all this responsibility?" Jake thought about it for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "If helping 3 people led to this much cooperation between species, then it was worth it. I just hope we're strong enough to protect what we've built." Jennifer pointed to a group of alien ships practicing combat maneuvers with human vessels. "Look at them, Jake. They're not fighting because they have to. They're fighting because they want to. Because they believe in what we represent." "And what's that?" "Hope," she said simply. "Hope that the galaxy can be better than it was." The next morning brought the news everyone had been dreading. Long-range sensors detected the approaching Dominion fleet, over 300 ships, including some of the most feared warships in the galaxy. General Voss was coming to Earth, and he was bringing everything he had. Jake stood in the command center, surrounded by Allied leaders making final preparations. In a few hours, they would learn whether friendship was stronger than fear, whether cooperation could triumph over conquest. The greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The Dominion fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a plague of metal locusts. General Voss stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, watching his sensors count over 300 warships ready for battle. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we're detecting the Allied fleet. They're formed up in defensive positions around Earth." Voss smiled grimly. "How many ships?" 412, sir." "But sir, they're using formations we've never seen before. Multiple species flying in perfect coordination." "Numbers don't matter when your enemies don't trust each other," Voss replied. "When the shooting starts, their alliance will crumble. Fear always defeats friendship." In the Allied Command Center on Unity Station, Admiral Susan Clark watched the approaching Dominion fleet with determination. Around her, beings from dozens of species worked together at control stations, sharing data and coordinating defenses. "All ships report ready, Admiral," announced Captain Rachel Torres, now commanding the human battle group. "Alien commanders confirm formation integrity," added Lieutenant Jennifer Lee, monitoring the multilingual communications. Jake Morrison stood beside Admiral Clark, watching the tactical displays with growing amazement. The Allied fleet wasn't just organized. It was perfectly synchronized. Ships from species that had been enemies for generations were flying together like they had trained for years. "How are they doing this?" he asked Susan. "Trust," she replied simply. "They trust each other because they trust us, and they trust us because of what you did." The battle began when Voss launched his first wave of fighters. Hundreds of small attack craft screamed toward the Allied lines, expecting to break up their formations with overwhelming numbers. Instead, they met something unprecedented. The Allied fleet didn't just coordinate their defenses, they shared them. Helix Foundation gravity fields guided Rigel Republic missiles toward Dominion targets. Altair energy barriers protected human ships while they recharged their weapons. Spiral Confederacy stealth technology helped Shadow Fleet vessels appear exactly where they were needed. "Impossible," Voss snarled, watching his fighter screen get decimated. "They're sharing targeting data in real time. No one trusts their weapons systems to alien control." "Sir," his intelligence officer reported nervously, "our analysts think they're not just sharing data. They're sharing everything. Shields, weapons, Sensors. It's like they're fighting as one giant ship. Voss ordered his heavy cruisers to advance, but the result was the same. Every Dominion attack was met by a perfectly coordinated response. When his forces tried to concentrate fire on human vessels, alien ships moved to intercept. When he targeted alien ships, human vessels provided cover. They're willing to die for each other, Colonel Kane observed with disbelief. No, Voss realized with growing horror. They're not willing to die for each other. They don't think of themselves as separate anymore. They think of themselves as one people. The battle raged for hours across the Sol system. Dominion forces, used to enemies who fought as individuals, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Their superior firepower meant nothing when they couldn't predict where the next attack would come from. But General Voss was not ready to give up. He had one final strategy that had never failed him before. All ships, target Earth directly, he ordered. Ignore the fleet. If we can destroy their homeworld, their alliance dies with it. The Dominion fleet suddenly changed tactics, driving straight toward Earth while ignoring the Allied ships around them. It was a desperate move, but it might work. Even the perfect coordination of the Allied fleet couldn't protect an entire planet from 300 warships. They're breaking through our lines, Captain Torres reported urgently. Some of them are going to reach Earth. Jake watched the tactical display with growing despair. Dozens of Dominion ships were pushing through the Allied defenses, taking terrible damage but staying on course for Earth. They would reach the planet in minutes. That's when Dex and Nova stepped forward. There is one more thing we can do, Dex said quietly. But it requires perfect trust between all Allied species. What do you mean? Admiral Clark asked. Nova's crystal skin began to glow brighter. The bonding ritual that Elder Kira performed created connections between our life forces. If all bonded allies focus their energy together, we can use an ancient technique. What kind of technique? Jake demanded. We can move the moons, Dexy replied simply. The command center fell silent. Then Jennifer Lee spoke up. Move the moons. You mean literally move them. The gravitational fields generated by perfect harmony between bonded species can manipulate celestial bodies, Nova explained. But it requires absolute trust and unity. One species holding back, one moment of doubt, and it fails. Admiral Clark looked around at the alien representatives in the command center. If this goes wrong, we could destroy our own solar system. Ambassador Finn of the Rigel Republic stood up. The humans saved our mediators without asking for anything in return. We trust them completely. Captain Yara of the Helix Foundation nodded. Our species will provide all the energy we have. One by one, every allied species agreed to attempt something that had never been tried before. Jake felt the weight of impossible responsibility. They were asking entire civilizations to risk everything based on trust earned by one simple rescue. Do it, he said. What happened next defied every law of physics that human science understood. As the Allied fleet focused their energy through the Vellani survivors, space itself began to change. Luna, Earth's moon, started moving from its orbit. The asteroids of the belt shifted position. Even distant Pluto began to drift from its course. General Voss watched his sensors in disbelief as gravitational fields unlike anything he had ever seen began forming around his fleet. His ships, designed to fight other ships, found themselves caught in gravitational wells created by moving moons. Sir, we're trapped, his pilot reported. Something is pulling us off course. All ships, full power to engines, Voss ordered desperately. But it was too late. The combined gravitational forces of multiple celestial bodies, moved by the perfect harmony of grateful species, created an inescapable trap. The entire Dominion fleet found itself captured without a single shot being fired. As the gravitational field stabilized, holding the enemy ships in harmless orbits, Jake realized what had happened. The Allied species hadn't just shared their technology or their weapons. They had shared their very life forces, creating something greater than the sum of its parts. It's over, Admiral Clark announced to both fleets. General Voss, surrender. Your ships. Voss stared at his trapped fleet, finally understanding what he had been fighting against. This wasn't just an alliance of convenience. These beings had become something new, a true galactic community built on trust and mutual support. How? He asked simply. Jake opened a communication channel to the Dominion flagship. You wanted to know how we did this, General? It started with helping strangers who needed medical attention. Everything else grew from there. Impossible, Voss replied. No one builds an empire on kindness. We didn't build an empire, Jake corrected him. We built a family. In the months that followed, the Dominion War became a turning point in galactic history. Many of Voss's allied species, seeing the power of cooperation, asked to join the new galactic community. Those who preferred conquest found themselves isolated and outnumbered. Jake returned to his terraforming work, but now every world he helped create became a symbol of what species could accomplish together. The technique of moving celestial bodies was never attempted again. It was too dangerous, and the Alliance hoped they would never need it. But the lesson remained. When beings truly trusted each other, when they were willing to share everything they had, they could accomplish miracles. Years later, Jake would tell new terraforming crews about the night that changed the galaxy. He would explain how one simple decision to help strangers in need had led to the greatest alliance in galactic history. Remember, he would always tell them, you never know when the person you help today might be someone whose gratitude can move planets tomorrow. The galaxy had learned that gratitude, like gravity, was one of the fundamental forces that held civilizations together, and humanity had become living proof that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can have the largest consequences. In the end, the humans had kept their promise without even knowing they had made one. They never forgot a favor, and their thanks had indeed moved planets.